All right, we are live. Thanks for joining me today. I think this is my fourth or fifth live stream in a row, trying to just take notes and all the questions I'm getting throughout the day, trying to take my most frequently asked questions and record a video every day and answer as many of your questions as I can every day. And so I hope to get to your questions and answer your questions and and cover as much as we can in these sessions to help as many leaders as possible. These are specifically created for pastors, but I think a lot of the content would be relative for any leader moving their organization online in this season and having to shift and adapt. And so today I'm talking about media engagement and what to measure. And so I'm specifically getting a lot of questions around live streams and online video content as now pastors are paying a lot more attention to those numbers and what do they mean and how do you compare that to physical attendance and so I want to start with that and really talk about media and one of the wrong number to focus on to prioritize is unique visitors. The number that you really want to think about is minutes watched or minutes listened to. Now, in the podcast space, it's hard to get that data, but knowing that an assumption you can make is that 90% of a podcast is consumed, which is one of the great things about podcast is most people consume most of the podcast that you create. They don't stop listening mid podcast. And so if you're getting a download, I think you can logically assume that they're listening to the majority of that sermon or that piece of content you're putting out. Now, when it comes to live streams, you're likely pushing it out to your website or church online platform, and then Facebook and YouTube. And this is where it gets a little more complicated. And sometimes when you take it down, you don't keep all the data. But minutes watched is the data you want to pay attention to. And this is where Facebook and YouTube are very different. Now, the average Facebook video is watched less than 30 seconds. And the average YouTube video is watched more than 7 minutes. And so a lot of people will say, well, we had 10,000 viewers on Facebook and we had 5,000 viewers on YouTube. But with that, I would really say YouTube is probably having a more significant impact. And so Facebook will count those numbers. If somebody watches for at least 3 seconds, even if they don't turn on their audio, if they're just scrolling through it in their feed and they keep it on their screen for 3 seconds, they're counting that as a view. Well, realistically, that's not a view. That's not what you're going to count as somebody attending your church service. Now, I think it is good to know how many screens it showed up on. But what you really want to do is measure how long people are watching and who watched, for longer than 3 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever that number is that you can measure within your platform. What you want to focus, though, is on the number of times people are watching. The other number that people are often asking me is, well, aren't there typically lots of people watching, around a computer or around a phone? And I think that's a good question. Now, understanding a podcast, it's unlikely. It's likely an individual. But when it comes to Facebook or YouTube or on a website, the answer is yes. And so the number that the majority of online pastors have come to agree on is 1.8 times. So you can take that number of viewers that you agree to that at this point, and then multiply it by 1.8. And that will give you the number that most online pastors would agree is the right variable. Now, some go as high as 3 and 4, and some will just count it as 1. But I think you can make that decision. But that's the most common answer that over the last 10 years that I have heard and talked with other online pastors that they agree to. So as you think about creating an attendance number, that's probably a good number for you to hit. A lot of people say 30 minutes watched a minimum to be counted towards that attendance number as well. You figure that out. At Community Bible Church, it was 3 minutes for us. Now, typically they start on for 3 minutes. They're staying on for a while longer, but we would ping them when they were on for 3 minutes. So that's how we measured it in that scenario, because they were significantly engaged at that point. Now, when it comes to social media, there's 2 key stats that you want to pay attention to. Typically, up until now, you were probably just paying attention to your followers. That also is the wrong number to be paying attention to. What you want to look at is impressions and engagement. This is really how many people you're reaching. How many people is it showing up on their screen, that content you're creating and putting out, and then how many people are actually interacting with it, how many people like it, how many people comment on it. You want to create engagement when it comes to social media. So measuring those two things, so not obsessing over followers, focusing on impressions and engagement when it comes to success on social media. On your website, you want to look at unique visitors and time on site. So a lot like minutes watched. If somebody comes to your website and they're gone in 10 seconds, that's not a good thing. You want to average over 2 minutes that people spending on your website and finding what they're looking for. And so measure time on site but I think unique visitors is important. Also pay attention to the geography of where people are coming in from. Are they coming in from, around your local church, or are you seeing more people from outside your region visiting your website? So pay attention to geography. And who the people are. It's fascinating, the data you can get on the people that are visiting your website or that are engaging with your content on social media. And the other is demographic, especially with social media engagement. You can know what demographics are engaging with your content. So many people just assume that all social media content is consumed by young people, and especially when it comes to Facebook, they're surprised by how much older the average age is of the people who are consuming their content. So pay attention to those numbers. Those numbers matter for your church. You can get more data than you've ever gotten before about your congregation, especially as you're engaging online, than you've ever gotten. Because you're not going to ask those questions if somebody comes to your church when they fill out their information. But now Facebook will actually give you so much of that data. And then email. Email is an important tool right now. You need to be communicating with your congregation. And if you want to know whether your emails are effective, you can know how many people open those emails and how many people clicked the link in your emails. And so pay attention to those open rates and those click-through rates. Those are important numbers to how effectively you're engaging your congregation and how effectively you're communicating with your folks. So those are the numbers that matter from my perspective. And as you dig in to your online services and your online content that you're putting out there, pay attention to those numbers and consistently, write down those numbers and measure those numbers. And during this time that you're fully online, check on a week-to-week basis. Are we growing? Are we shrinking? Are we seeing more engagement? And then obviously, even from a church standpoint, the giving, is how's your giving doing? And are people responding in that way? Or how many decisions are you getting? And are they, taking next steps within your services? And are you effectively following up with them? So those are the numbers that matter. Thanks so much for watching. I will probably not do this this weekend, but I will continue again next week. If there's anything that I can do to help you in this season, don't hesitate to reach out. Lots of great resources coming. If you go to dunhamandcompany.com, we just put out a podcast yesterday talking about online church. Go to the podcast page, and we're about to put out a resource today that's going to be incredibly valuable to churches. So be looking for that. I'll be posting it on my various social media accounts. So lots of stuff we're putting out for church leaders right now. I want to help you as much as I possibly can in this season. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you again soon. Thanks.